The Pope is dead.
The throne is vacant.
Well, Cardinal Lawrence.
It seems the responsibility for the conclave falls upon you.
Rafe, your Cardinal Lawrence reminded me a little bit of an Hercule Poirot from the Agatha Christie novel. Yeah. Was that maybe an inspiration?
Well, not Poirot necessarily, but the person I did think of is the Le Carre figure, George Smiley, yeah. who is I think in the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. He's in retirement and he comes out to find out who the big traitor is. And Le Carre, of course, created an extraordinary figure as a reticent investigator, someone who sort of investigates in a circular way, not in a direct way. And I felt that was a bit like Lawrence. Yes, this sort of, and also he's thrown into this. He's a bit unwilling, but he has he finds within him a real sense of purpose. He wants the right person, the most fitting person to be Pope, I think.
Rafe gives this beautiful speech about the importance of doubt.
If there was only certainty and no doubt, there would be no mystery, and therefore no need for faith.
How important are doubts during a film production?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, we were talking a bit earlier about the value of creative doubt, not of it being the fuel possibly, but we're never entirely sure, so we keep hunting and searching as directors or as actors. You can't be certain. You have little moments when you think, oh, that felt good, or that felt not so good. But I think if you're in the production end, as a producer, you are confronted with doubt all the time. But you have to have a schedule, and you have to have a budget, and so you are in the business of control. And you do want certainty, and you don't always get it. But if we're talking about a path through life, I think doubt is, as in the speech that my character gives, it's a sort of useful surface on which to sort of find your way through life, to have doubts.
And how about as a director, like all your doubts? I'm assuming you're having doubt until you lock the picture, or even beyond that.
I still have them. I think it's really important to embrace them, because doubt makes you also listen. Doubt makes meaning it's uncertainty, meaning you don't know if you're right. You think you're right, but maybe Rafe has a point, or the costume designer, or the dolly grip has a point, or the cameraman, and you think, oh, I'm going to listen to that. Oh, that's a good idea. Let's take that and let's explore this way. So I think it's filmmaking is such a collaborative effort. There's 100 people on set. There's 25 actors, 5 in the core group. And everyone has, not always great ideas, but everyone has ideas. And it's about galvanizing them and finding the right mixture of how to make a cohesive picture. And I think doubt helps you sort of listen to everyone and listen to yourself, exploring yourself. What do I really feel is the right way? And then eventually you have to make a decision. And these decisions, it's not like you have an endless amount of time to think about these things. It's like split-second things. But you still have to, while you decide, sort of keep listening. Or you make a decision and then you realize, what? It was actually the wrong decision. Let's go the other way. And I think to embrace that is really important.
No sane man would want the papacy. The men who are dangerous are the ones who do want it.
The wonderful Stanley Tucci is part of this ensemble, and he's made a name of himself a little bit as a drinks expert the last few years. Did he have any input on the wine that was served during the production?
He had a lot of input on our evening entertainment when we needed to find a good restaurant, yes. And we all wanted to go together and just sort of, shed the tension of the shooting day and relax in the evening or on the weekends. That was very helpful.
Was he also the biggest jokester of the whole ensemble? Because it's a very serious movie and very tense one.
Well, the wonderful thing, we had such a great ensemble, and everyone was different. And everyone genuinely liked and respected each other. And I think if you have if you have a similar cast where people have a same type of character or a similar type of character, in an ensemble, it's really important that Stanley is different from Rafe, and that John Lithgow is different from the both of them, and Isabella has a counterpoint, and Carlos Diaz comes in, Lucien Massamartin. They all have a different energy, different way of speaking, different way of infusing their roles with humor or sincerity or sensitivity or like these things. And that way it becomes always like interesting for the eye and for the ear to listen to, that because I see different people coming together. And I mean, naturally, the Cardinals come from all over the world and everyone's going to be different. So you need to represent that.
How has this been kept a secret for so long?
We'll never find a candidate who doesn't have any kind of black mark against them.
Although we sisters are supposed to be invisible, God has nevertheless given us eyes and ears.
Because you have so many characters and so many narrative strings, time flies during this movie. When the credits rolled, I was shocked. Wait,
great.
No, those weren't 2 hours. That couldn't have been. Was the script always this tight, or was that something like the pace that came in the editing? Did you throw out a lot of stuff that Rafe maybe regrets now, stuff that's on the cutting room floor?
We had the regret I'm going to ask him in a second, but we had a wonderful screenwriter, Peter Strawn, who wrote Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, for example, who wrote this screenplay and stuck very much to sort of a propulsive, or it was a very propulsive read. It was a page turner to read, and I wanted to find out, what the next person's weakness are and who's going to become Pope and what Rafe is going to find behind this closed door. And so it was a very, very interesting, fast read. And then it was about, getting that to the screen. And of course you're going to have elements where you think I wasn't so good on this day, or, we didn't quite catch what we needed to catch. Maybe we just leave these 3 shots out, or we leave the semi-scene out. And maybe also, it's about it's about chiseling away and then eventually finding that 2-hour movie that hopefully goes by quickly.
Yeah. And about the regrets?
No. I never sat through that thinking. I think I very rarely feel that now. I think I've been once or twice the other side of the camera through the editing process, and I know that you have to, what's the phrase, kill your darlings. And so I very rarely feel that, why is that cut? Very rarely feel that. Usually you don't notice, because if it's working, and I think when I watched Conclave, I was completely swept up in it. I wasn't counting the scenes that were cut at all.
Some scenes are taking place in a room with a lot of seats. Was that a cinema? And if yes, did you use that to watch movies after a hard day's work?
It's a wonderful location outside of Rome that was built, I think, in the 30s. And I love this auditorium because it's a congress center, actually, and this auditorium. But we found it to be visually very attractive because to put cardinals dressed in red among green seats in a dark room, and then use that sort of as it's quite dark, and then use a slow zoom in to listen to them and to look at them. And this location inspired me very much to rewatch and revisit the 1970s conspiracy thrillers by Alan J. Pakula, or The President's Men, for example, or Parallax View, movies with Warren Beatty and Robert Redford, all those wonderful 1970s movies. And they became a big inspiration for creating this slightly claustrophobic, atmospheric atmosphere.
In terms of directing and acting, you knocked it out of the park. Congratulations on this wonderful movie. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you so much.